Tonight, our special transmission as the International Court of Justice has ordered that Israel cease its military operation in Rafah. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Muslim News Canada on Muslim Network TV. I'm Aisha Ashraf. Today is the 232nd day since Israel started targeting Palestinians indiscriminately. Earlier today, Israeli airstrikes on a government facility in Deir al-Bala killed 12 Palestinians. Displaced residents were seeking refuge in the facility. The casualties include women and children. Several homes in northern Gaza have been targeted by Israeli strikes. At least 7 individuals have been killed. Palestinian news agency reports strikes on Sheikh Radwan neighborhood have killed 2 Palestinians from the same family. Another 5 civilians have been killed at Al-Fakhura neighborhood near Jabalia refugee camp. Media reports say an attack in the Al-Daraj neighborhood has completely destroyed 2 buildings. Israeli forces have trapped medical staff and patients at Gamal Adwan Hospital in Beit Lahya. There is heavy fire around the hospital. Patients at the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital are in critical condition as there is a fuel shortage for generators. Israel is denying Palestinians access to the Spanish consulate in Jerusalem. The move comes as Spain, Ireland, and Norway have announced recognition of a Palestinian state. CIA Director William Burns will meet Mossad and Qatari officials in Europe to discuss the release of prisoners and a ceasefire. The death toll from Israel's war continues to rise. At the time of writing, at least 35,800 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli attacks. A revised report by the United Nations estimates another 10,000 civilians are buried under the rubble. 80,011 Palestinians have been injured. Israel's death toll from Hamas's attack stands at 1,139. Israeli opposition leader Yair Lapid is calling on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to acknowledge Palestine as a state under specific conditions and assurances. Details of the conditions have not been disclosed. Lapid's appeal follows announcements by Norway, Ireland, and Spain to recognize Palestine as an independent state. Lapid has criticized National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir for obstructing Netanyahu's potential stance. 8 European countries, including Bulgaria, Poland, and Sweden, already recognize Palestine. In a significant ruling today, the International Court of Justice has ordered Israel to cease its military offensive in Rafah. The court's decision has been made by a majority of 13-2. It mandates an immediate halt to Israel's actions in Rafah. The court has expressed doubts about Israel's evacuation efforts. It has criticized a lack of information on the safety of the population during the evacuation. The city lies in southern Gaza and is a refuge for about 1 million displaced Palestinians. The ruling is part of a genocide case brought by South Africa. It represents the court's most significant order to date and increases pressure on Israel amid its ongoing war in Gaza. The court has also instructed Israel to open the Rafah border crossing for aid. The ruling says fact finders must be permitted to enter Gaza to investigate genocide allegations and to preserve evidence. Despite the court's order, Israel is unlikely to comply. Israeli troops entered Rafah in the first week of May, despite significant international pressure to avoid a large-scale ground offensive. South Africa's recent request on May 15 argued that Rafah was part of an endgame to annihilate Gaza as a viable human habitat. Israel maintains it is targeting a military stronghold for Hamas. The 17-judge bench has refrained from granting a ceasefire request for all of Gaza. It has, however, acknowledged there is a real and imminent risk to Palestinian rights. Israeli-appointed Judge Ahran Barak and Uganda's Julia Sabutinde have opposed the ruling. Hundreds of Harvard students in graduation robes walked out of their commencement yesterday. The walkout aimed to show solidarity with Palestine and the 13 students barred from the ceremony due to their participation in protest encampments. During the commencement ceremony, the graduating students stood up and chanted, "Free, free Palestine." They also chanted, let them walk," in reference to the 13 graduates who were not allowed to receive their diplomas. Commencement speaker Maria Ressa, a journalist and Nobel Peace Prize laureate, reinforced the message of free speech. Ressa said, "Harvard, you are being tested." The graduation took place in the historic Harvard Yard, where pro-Gaza protests and an encampment had been established last month. The camp was disbanded on May 14 after an agreement was reached between students and Harvard leaders. Earlier in the week, faculty restored the 13 students to the list of those eligible to graduate. However, Harvard's governing board later overruled this decision. The board says the students are not in good standing. They say they cannot responsibly vote to award them degrees at this time. The students who walked out reconvened at a Methodist church near Harvard Square for a people's commencement. The students shared stories of those who had lost their lives in Gaza. The New York Times reports the ceremony was marked by contrasting displays of support. A plane circled above the graduates, trailing an Israeli and a U.S. flag. A truck parked outside the campus displayed a billboard listing names and images of pro-Palestinian protesters under the banner, "Harvard's leading anti-Semites." Over a dozen Oxford University students have been arrested during a peaceful pro-Palestinian sit-in. The students demanded the institution cut ties with entities involved in Israel's actions in Gaza. The protest was organized by Oxford Action for Palestine. The protesters were seeking a dialogue with university administrators, who instead called the police. Activists claimed students were arrested and denied basic rights while being detained. A clip shared on social media shows one student being taken out of the Wellington Square office building on a stretcher. Oxford University refutes claims of police intervention. Instead, it alleges the students used direct action tactics. The university agrees to pledge support for Palestine through various initiatives. Over 2,400 students, 600 staff members, and 14 local trade unions are calling on Oxford University to cut ties with firms connected to the Israeli occupation. Colombian President Gustavo Petro has ordered the establishment of an embassy in Ramallah and Palestinian territories. Ramallah is the administrative capital of the Palestinian Authority, Fatah-controlled government body. The body exercises partial civil control over the occupied West Bank. The Colombian foreign minister has announced the decision. He says the decision reflects Colombia's support for the Palestinian statehood recognition efforts at the UN. Previously, Petro had recalled the Colombian ambassador from Tel Aviv, citing Israeli actions in Gaza. Colombia has also joined South Africa in accusing Israel of genocide at the International Court of Justice. This move follows the General Assembly's support for Palestinian full UN membership. Colombia is not the first Latin American country to sever ties with Israel. Bolivia severed ties with Israel in October. Chile and Honduras have also recalled their ambassadors. The Muslim Association of Newfoundland and Labrador has reported that it has received a derogatory email targeting Muslim professionals and the Muslim faith. The email supports statements made by the Progressive Conservative candidate for the by-election, Lynn Paddock. Paddock has commented that Newfoundland and Labrador should hire health workers from countries like Germany instead of Pakistan and India. While the full details of the email have not been disclosed, the association condemns the false accusations against the Muslim faith. The email has been forwarded to law enforcement authorities. The association says that health workers come from all backgrounds. It is calling on politicians to engage in constructive dialogue rather than divisive debates. The association says the Muslim community has made immense contributions in the province since the 1950s. Nearly 7,000 Muslims live in Newfoundland and Labrador. Ottawa police have charged a 74-year-old woman with assault, mischief, and harassment by threatening conduct after a demonstration at City Hall. On May 14, a Muslim victim was taking part in demonstrations when the perpetrator approached her and removed her hijab. The perpetrator also made lewd gestures. Thank you for watching. Our news is produced by Muslim Network TV, which is a not-for-profit organization. We need your support for donations. Please scan the QR code on our broadcast or visit muslimnetwork.tv to donate now, so we can continue to amplify the voices of Muslims in Canada and abroad.